Hi student, this is Unit 6, Lesson 4, Gestalt Principles. You may remember Gestalt Principles from earlier in the school year. Unit 1, we discussed these guys. Here we'll discuss the Gestalt Principles of perception. So this is different from sensation. Sensation is taking in the information and perception is organizing it in our brains and our minds and making sense of the world. So what does it mean? It means the experience that comes from organizing bits of information into meaningful wholes. The Gestalt thinkers believed that rather than seeing the little bits and pieces of things, we unconsciously, without our thought, make meaning of those little bits of information into whole bits of information that are more meaningful. Looks a little bit like this. First off, proximity is one of their principles, that we see 3 sets of 2 lines instead of 6 individual lines in this little illustration. We group items together just because of their closeness. So instead of, like I said, seeing 6 individual lines, we group them together because they're close together in proximity. Next, these X's and O's, since they are similar, we group them automatically and believe that they belong together. These 2 lines, we don't see 4 intersecting lines, rather we see 2 simultaneously running lines. Continuity, according to these Gestalt theorists, says that we want to see the waves of lines instead of one single line. We don't see half circles, we see a wave, and we see an individual horizontal line. And in this graphic, you see 2 runners running together, right? Here they go. Here they are. They're still running together. However, what you didn't notice was that this man is dressed for a winter run while the lady is dressed for a more summertime run. So they're really probably not running together at all, but our brain puts them together because they're moving together. They must belong together. All right, many different pictures here. Do you see a dog? Do you see an elephant? That is because of closure. Our brain fills the gaps in order for these individual bits and pieces to be a meaningful whole. The same is true here. Instead of seeing 13 individual dots, we can make that out to be a person walking. Figure and ground perception is the perception of figures against a background. So you see a gray background and a white vase. Well, did you see the faces? Figure and ground is what allows us to see that. In this picture, you notice the bicyclists, but also closer by is cyclist only sign. So that we'll fade out the bicyclists, and now you see that background, the white against the background. It's a little bit more noticeable when we blur out the people. There is the bird flying against a bright blue sky. We see figure and ground all over the place in our lifetimes. It's in advertising all over. We see it everywhere. Stroboscopic motion. You might have done this when you were little, like you took a Post-it pad and you did like this. You made a story out of it. Now, I don't know if you went as complex as Michael Jackson moonwalking or anything, but this is pretty cool. So stroboscopic motion is a perception of movement from rapid progression of images. And you notice this with like Christmas lights, neon lights at Christmas time, etc. So those are some brief explanations of the Gestalt principles. And again, we'll check more out in class.